Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today we have Eric Klein. Eric is the co-founder and CEO of Cloudonics. Sorry,
Cloudonics.
Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, brief background. I know it's not that brief. It's like a 2 decade long background, more than that, in fact. So, what led you to start Cloudonics, and if you can kind of like build your conversation prior to Cloudonics for the viewers.
Well, okay. I'll skim over the early stuff. I moved from programming to networking to wide area networking to carrier networking. Back in 2011, I started working with one of our co-founders near on a telecom fraud prevention startup. And we worked real hard with that. And unfortunately, it went under. So I joined him as doing consulting. And while we were consulting, we had a number of customers come to us looking for solutions related to putting voice into mobile apps. And that was kind of the original concept behind Cloudonics, which kind of, it got more full when Nir's wife had a problem with her car one night. She went out to the mall, had a problem with the car, and it died in the middle of the road, called him completely hysterical, and he asked what he can do. And she's like, get a babysitter, bring my car, you deal with it. And he's like, well, just call the tow truck, call the insurance company. He's like, no, you deal with it. So at 11 at night, he gets a babysitter, brings the car over to her. She goes home to the kids, and he starts calling. He's like, this is a woman who is a controller of a 1,000-person company. Why couldn't she call? And he realized that these kinds of transactions are high friction. So you start in a mobile app where you have the policy number or the account number. You click the contact us, it goes out to the dialer, and it loses all the context of who you are. So whereas the app knows your GPS location, potentially is connected to the by Bluetooth to the computer in the car, has all of this information that the agent needs. And unfortunately, the minute it goes to the dialer, at most all they have is your name. So it was very frustrating. So we started looking at that and realized that there was a better way to make these kinds of calls happen. Improve on the context, do it all through the data network so you can hand off everything that the app knows about you when you click the button directly to the agent. Then in 2019, we started talking to some advisors at an accelerator and realized that we were selling the wrong product to the wrong people. Selling by developers for developers to the tech department was a problem because the tech department had their own ego. Well, we can build this, why do I need you? Or that kind of thing. And then suddenly it kind of flipped to us. What we actually can do is flip it around and start selling to the sales team. Faster time to revenue. And the ability to sell the same product targeting a different use case in a different department. The IT guys were like, oh, it's your budget? Sure, we'll be happy to support it. Whereas if it came from them, they wanted nothing to do with it. They didn't want to use their money, but they're happy to use sales. And we realized by going into the sales team, it made more sense. So helping sales, marketing, customer care get better communications with the sales agents was better than trying to go the other way. And it went from the difference of in early 2020, we were at 4 customers. Today, we're at 375 enterprise customers. So it's been a huge growth in 24 months.
Oh, wow. So, before I jump on to my next question, the first 2 customers, without naming them, do you want to share some? I got the gist of it, right? But the first 2 to 3 are pretty interesting. That is where the startups get the highs and the lows, right? Those first 2, 3 customers are the most important ones. You're kind of like jumping one day, and the next day you're like just down on your knees and be like, "Come on, God, please help us."
Well, the first 2 customers were on the mobile application side of things. So the first one was related to insurance. So what they were doing is that when you buy a phone in the United States, you have the option of getting insurance with the phone. So when you buy it from a carrier, you can get support and insurance. And they were looking to offer tech support features free to their customers because they were running into a problem where, oh, dad has an iPhone 7 and all the rest of the family has it, but dad's is the only one with insurance. So they'd call up and say, I've got a problem with an iPhone 7, give dad's policy number, and the whole family would be using it. So they were getting a lot of fraud and a lot of difficulty. So they came to us with a lot of, with a number of technical issues that we hadn't thought of. How do you identify an individual phone? How do you set quality on phones and check the voice services and stuff? And it kind of got us started on a particular direction for our licensing and profiling server, which enabled us to do a lot of different things with configuring how the profile for a phone would work. So when a new phone comes out, we don't have to wait for a phone to fix it. Within a couple of hours, we can have a new profile deployed on the app. That worked real well. The second real customer into that market, well, they came to us with a bad use case. And while we sat talking to them, we found a use case that made more sense for their solution. They were putting I guess you'd call it a Docker phone inside your phone.
Okay.
So typically, if you go work for a company and they give you a company phone, it's a separate physical phone with its own phone number, its own email, its own WhatsApp or whatever services. And when you leave the company, you give the phone back. Then companies started moving to bring your own device, and they tried to start controlling what you could do on your phone that has access to the company things. So these guys came up with the concept of, let's put in a virtual phone into the phone that the company controls. So it's a company WhatsApp, it's a company phone number, it's company access to data, but none of that can be copied over to the regular phone. They were completely separated. And then when you leave the company, they just shut off the phone. And this worked as it's a really great concept for that. And they came to us and it was like, okay, since we don't actually have a SIM card, we need you to provide the voice services and the SMS services. So people could text back and forth to the work phone number. So that was an interesting concept. And they were a startup that was around for 5-6 years.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting. So you mentioned you started early 2020, right? The initial customers came in early 2020. Then the COVID came.
Okay, those customers were 2017. Like I said, that was back when we were strictly mobile. When we moved over to the web product and other services, that was late 2019. When we flipped over to the call centers and the sales feature. And we ran into a problem bringing more calls into a call center that's closed or 25% staffed because of COVID was a problem.
That was the question I was going to ask, because all of these software deployments, if you look at other products, so they're kind of like enterprise solution focused towards, deployments happening over 1,000 people, 5,000 people under one roof, right? But now due to COVID, you've run into challenges, so I just wanted to discuss those. So yeah, please.
Well, for the mobile app, it didn't affect anything because company phone is company phone. But for the call center solutions, you have less people in the call center, so you don't want more calls to come in. So we kind of, I won't call it a pivot, but we kind of added another service under the theory, I can bring the call into the call center securely. Now I can take the call out of the call center securely to the agent. So we were able to take the on-premise telephone system, call recording, all of those big signs that they have in every call center that says John did 17 calls and closed 3, and Mary did 30 calls and closed 7, and all of that kind of stuff that companies have spent millions of dollars installing for in-house call centers. We can now make it pretend to be a cloud service. So your people can work from home without breaking GDPR or HIPAA requirements as if they were calling from the office phone. And that really went really well for us.
Got it. Makes sense.
Then we had customers who came to us for a slightly different use case that was related, which is related to call analytics in marketing.
Okay.
So when you put out an advertisement on the internet, you A/B test it, and every time you click on a phone number to make the call, you need to have a whole body of phone numbers, and you have to keep cycling through them every couple of minutes so you don't end up having tens of thousands of phone numbers. because we don't use phone numbers, we were able to do the same thing and put in statistics about how long the call was and other things that you lose when it goes out over the dialer. And that's been incredibly good for us because our partners are already in the call center, are already providing services to the marketing and sales departments. So they just bring us in, and that's brought us hundreds of customers just through the ISV partners.
Interesting. So, and I believe you were initially, you raised a seed round, right?
We raised a pre-seed round.
You raised a pre-seed round, and it's been 2 years. You haven't raised anything, but despite
nothing real. We the last money we got that was significant was in 2019 from the accelerator.
Okay. Yeah.
We got a little bit of money from some angels since then. Everything else has been revenue.
Oh wow! And
so we kind of bootstrapped it.
That's amazing. And but because those timelines, 2020, 2021, even up till April 2022, right? The valuations were kind of like off the charts. Revenue generating companies were getting like $100 million valuations, or even at the Series A they were getting like valued at $60 to $80 million, right? So being a founder who's raised a pre-seed, who's doing cash flow positive, you have this kind of like enticement to, or kind of like a will to go for the round or not, the confusion, the dilemma. I'm pretty sure you would have had these discussions with your co-founders. You want to shed some light on those?
Well,
where you were like, okay, we want to raise, we don't want to raise. Do you want to discuss those?
The problem is, and I've heard this from multiple accelerators and multiple advisors, you're either building the company, meaning you're building revenue, or you're looking for an investment. You cannot spend 100% time on both. So we really went and said, we're going to concentrate on revenue and showing traction and building and improving our go-to-market rather than fighting for going in and getting an investment, because a lot of the investors just didn't get what we were doing. And they kept coming back with questions that were not exactly relevant.
Okay.
And they just weren't getting the tech we were doing, which meant we were talking to the wrong investors or with the wrong background. So we said, you know what?
Sorry for interjecting, or maybe you weren't using the words like blockchain or AI into your deck, maybe?
We don't have either. Well, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Early on, we went to a bunch of investors back while we were in the accelerator, and we're connected to 500,000 devices, providing services for 20 million phones. And they're like, you must have huge amounts of data. And we're like, no, we have no data. By design, we literally store no data except that the call happened, because if we don't have data, nobody can hack us and steal it.
True.
And at that point, it was just beginning to become relevant of security by design as a feature, and they just didn't get it yet. Everything was AI, natural learning, machine language, all of these kind of deep data analysis concepts were the hottest things out. Blockchain wasn't hot at that point. It had come and it had gone, and it just came back again. So we literally went the opposite route. Security, privacy are factors. I don't want to know who my customers are. I don't want any data about them. And slowly they started to realize it. The other question they kept asking us is, well, Twilio created the category that you're in. How are you going to compete with Twilio? And our answer is, we don't compete with Twilio. We're doing something different. And they never quite understood it.
God.
2 months ago, Twilio came to us and said, we need help with completing a couple of deals. We can do 85% of the deals ourselves, but that last little bit of connection or service, we don't have. We understand you do. So we're now partnered with them, and we've got 9 deals in the works of joint partnerships with Twilio. And now suddenly our story makes sense. It's like, oh, what are you going to do about competing with Twilio? We're not. Twilio's bringing us business. It's a whole new story to talk to investors.
God, amazing. So I'm really loving the conversation, but these podcasts, we keep them short and crisp. So I would definitely love to have you on a longer webinar that we usually have 40 minutes. So in that we have a a host and three speakers. So I would definitely like to have you for that in September. So
That would be
August
great.
24th. Yeah. So last question, someone who raised a pre-seed, then bootstrap, then fully focused towards revenue, so any pieces, and you kind of like, as per the story I'm getting, you pivoted along the way a bit as well, tweaking the features would be the right word as per the client requirements, so kind of like, what top three pieces of advice you would be giving to young founders, who are younger, starting out, want to
Okay.
learn?
The three things that I've come up with so far, and this is what I mentor companies with. One, make sure that you're actually doing a solution for a problem, not a solution looking for a problem. Lots of companies come up with really great tech, really great solutions, and then go, well, what can I apply this to? It's a guaranteed failure. Second one, make sure that your target audience knows that they have a problem, or start educating them about it 6 months before you're ready to launch. Okay, the fraud product that we had, nobody knew that telecom fraud hit companies because nobody talked about it. I spent 2 years educating the market, and it just, sales never happened because you spent all your time explaining to them why it's a problem. So build up the story, the SEO, the details about there is a problem and we're working on it as early as you possibly can. So when people start looking for it or you start talking to it, they can go, oh, wait a second, you guys are the ones who do this, not what the heck are you talking about? And it's a huge difference on where you're spending your time and your money. And the third one, be very careful to identify who the target user and who the target budget holder are. Because when we were selling to tech, selling for developers, when they have no say in the purchase, they have no budget, was not getting us anywhere. The minute we started talking to VPs of sales and said, here's what it helps you, and here's how it helps your employees, suddenly they got it and it was easier to close a deal. But until you understand who holds the decision process and who actually is going to use it, you're targeting the wrong person and you're never going to sell.
Got it. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
It was amazing talking to you, and take care of yourself. And we'll all the best with Cloud Onyx. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure for being here.
And we're done with the recording.